Welcome back. Welcome back to the morning show here on Tobago Updates Television, and thank you so much for staying with us. Before we went to the break, speaking with acting ASP Mahalia Bacchus, we introduced the topic of town hall meetings, and we want to get back to that conversation because we know the importance of the community relationship. We know the importance with stakeholder relationship because we know that fighting crime is not just a TTPS thing. We know that we all have our roles to play. So you were inviting rather the public to come into those meetings and to ensure that they have their say, that they hear the strategies that the police is trying to implement specific to their community, because I know community by community, you will have different strategies, different challenges, and so you have to make different approaches. So let's continue there and build out into how the TTPS plans to partner with each community, the programs that you want to implement, how you are going to get community members to be a part of what you are doing to ensure we all have an eye on crime.
All right. So, the aspect of community policing is one where we have this proactive approach, where we have the police and the members of the communities working together in a collaboration. It's not just about the police going out there and saying, this is what we're going to do. A lot of times we use a lot of measures that helps to get the voice of the community involved, and that they are part of what we do to help to treat with issues that they may be facing. So one of the things that we have is like our station councils, and the station council involves all our business stakeholders, members of the community, or schools, the churches. Everyone is invited to those station council meetings. It gives us an opportunity to be able to bring them up to speed as to what is taking place in their space and how they can work with the police to make changes, right? Some of these changes would include things such as our SIPTED program. This is crime prevention through environmental design. So, for example, if we're having an issue where there's a basketball court and maybe the police is getting a lot of reports about people getting robbed, God forbid, at that space, then we could work with you because members on that board, also we have the T&Tech officials, your WASA officials, everybody who may be a part of that in that space could be in that station council. So we work with them to help to bring light to the area, clean up the space, ensure that there's sometimes you put up signage, right? So people could be aware and to bring a change to that area. So when we talk about SIPTED, this is what we speak about, taking something negative and bringing some positivity to change any crime that might be within that space, right? So we have those. We also have our community justice clinics, where we have lawyers on board who come into the communities and offer free advice to person. One of the biggest things in Tobago is land issues, right? People are constantly bickering over land, taking persons to court and so on, and they offer that advice to persons. But from the community aspect, we get to work a little closer with our schools, right? The teachers, the community groups that are on the outside. The officers go into the community and integrate themselves into these groups and see where we could look at what issues they are facing and how best we could work together to treat with a lot of these issues.
And, in terms of the initiatives that you have, in terms of stakeholders being a part of the board, as you mentioned, you have the utilities being there, like T&Tech, WASA, as you mentioned before. How has that been working in terms of ensuring that, one, you understand what the objectives are, and two, the cooperation, because you're going into communities with, it's a good idea, it's a good initiative, but how have the communities been accepting these initiatives and how have they been working? And do you have any types of assessment in terms of outcomes, as it were?
All right, so presently we are looking at some of the areas where we can implement some of these programs. But I could tell you from experience, there was one time at the waterfall space in Lekoto, we were having a lot of issues when persons parked their cars and people were going there and breaking into the cars and taking their personal items and so on. The officers of the Mahalia police station did an excellent job, and we were able to identify who the perpetrator was and so on. From that, because remember, besides detection, we look at prevention in terms of crime. So on the station council board, we had a member who was a part of the works department, and we were able to work with the works department through the member and the other members of the community and have signs placed there to bring to persons' attention that, listen, be careful when you park your car and that kind of thing. So it brought awareness and it lessened what was taking place in the space. So that's a perfect example of showing you where somebody is in the department, they work with the police, we put up the signage, and along with the patrols and so forth, we were able to curb this problem. So when we talk about SIPTED, a simple thing as a sign could go a very long way.
So, Acting ASP, sorry, you mentioned the council and the different bodies that make up the council. One of the things that I didn't hear about was neighborhood watches. What is the TTPS's stance on neighborhood watches, and perhaps getting communities to be more welcoming to the idea of establishing neighborhood watches?
All right, so as I mentioned to you, I am the ASP in charge of operations, and you touched on one of the areas that I am presently working on to try to revive the neighborhood watch aspect of it, because I know when we give those target hardening tips, one of the things you always hear me speak about is be your brother's keeper and looking out for each other. So we're in a space where we have 10 streets, but I cannot be on every street at the same time. So somebody from each street being a part of that group could assist in changing what happens in that space. You see a vehicle on the street now, you could be able to alert there's a strange vehicle around. And you're not just doing it on your own, you know. When you do the neighborhood watch groups, the police is also involved with you. And you get real-time information that you could act on quickly, right? And they get there to probably treat with that strange vehicle that might be in your space at that time. So neighborhood watches are very, very good. And they also assist in treating with that preventative aspect and that to solve crime within the space, in your spaces, if they are active and working well.
So this is something that you're currently building out, so it's not implemented yet. And I'm seeing that this can work because I know certain areas. I know some friends I have in Trinidad who are in watch groups, and when I talk to one of my friends and I hear the types of conversations, the people who are in the chat, as you mentioned, the real-time information being fed to the TTPS, ensuring that they know what is happening. And it's something we want to introduce. I know some persons might be apprehensive. They don't want to have the number in group chats because, you know, every time I enter a group chat, but this is one of the chats that could possibly save your life, save the life of somebody you know, keep you from a traumatic experience, especially if you see somebody strange in your area. Especially at night and in areas where we have young children as well. You know, sometimes we have young children participating in activities. They might be going to football or boxing or whatever in the evening, and they have to come home. Perhaps they might have to walk home by themselves in the evening. So those are the things we are hoping that this can help us to kind of monitor. The thing about it now, as I mentioned, it would monitor. Now, the apprehension of being in a group chat with people that you might not necessarily know or have a relationship with in a community. We will find all types of people in there. Has the TTPS considered, as you are building out now, considered how are you going to manage this group of people to ensure that they understand the information that is being transmitted in here is for community watch purposes?
Right. So when it comes to watch groups, you have to have strict rules and in terms of screening, because you have to look at who you have on the chat as well too. And the reason why people might be vested to want to be there, hoping that it is not to continue any crime. Just saying, you understand? So obviously it takes a lot of mechanisms in advance, and the persons that are going to be part of this group must meet before. You have to know who you're working with, and you have to know the people. So one of the ways you do it is through little socialization, and you must be trained. People, there's as I tell you, it is being fleshed out. People have to be trained in as to what they are supposed to do and how these groups work. So it's not just about willy-nilly forming a group and you're just adding people, like some of these roadblock chats and these things where anybody might be on, you know. So it will be a properly well-censored group with rules and having the right persons on board to assist.
And, you know, I'm here for it because at the end of the day, we kind of want neighborhoods, areas, communities that are safe once again. You know, if we go back to when we were children, we were free and we didn't even have to worry about if somebody following us on the street. So we want to ensure that we could come back to that place. So in terms of the community policing, are there any other areas that you're looking at to bring relief or to implement any other types of programs and initiatives, or even encourage people in communities to come up with ideas as well? As you mentioned, it's not a TTPS thing saying we come in and doing this. Have you had any more inroads in terms of what else we can do?
Well, basically, we have all those, the police youth clubs and so on the outside, for people to support the clubs. You know, our young people are our future. So this is where it starts. Even if you don't have a child going to a youth club, it doesn't mean that you can't be involved to assist, whether it be through bringing advice or bringing training to these persons, coming and giving them life support skills and that kind of thing to take them into the future. So I'm saying there are different ways in which we can all be involved. Sometimes we could just be by mentoring a child, right? That is so important these days. We have a lot of male figures, and we know we have what challenges with our little males in the society today. So you can get involved, be a part of the schools in your spaces, right? So that you could give your worth there, whether it be through adopting a child, right? In the sense of making sure that they have their school supplies, that they get to school on time, and that all is well, because not every family is able to provide the way that they ought to for their children. So we can do so much as a community, right, to assist and to help each other on the outside.
I know acting in ASP, sorry to cut you off, but there was a sporting or football program that the TTPS initiated earlier this year, I believe.
Yes.
I can't remember the name.
ROCC.
ROCC, Rock the Island,
Rock
yes.
the Island.
How do you see that being integrated into the community policing?
Well, it is a part of the community policing. They were the officers that were pretty much instrumental in helping to push this program. The community policing officers, along with a lot of the Tobago footballers, which are males, right? And there was a reason they were using the males to help to inspire the other younger males who were a part of this program. ROCC was an excellent initiative, and it also was being piloted by our social worker, Ms. Scarlett Groom-Matthews. She's an excellent person when it comes to these areas, you know, and it is something that continues. The end result is that you're going to have a lot of the footballers and so on that were involved assisting, just as what I mentioned in terms of mentoring a lot of the young persons. So they're monitoring them still, and they're still looking into some of them who are part of the camps and so on. So much so, they are going to, they're providing shoes for some of the children who needed it to go back to school, right? So it's an ongoing thing. It's not over with. It's just going to take different phases as it goes along.
And we continue to look forward to initiatives like that coming out, especially from TTPS, because we want to make sure we change the relationship with the general public and the TTPS. So having those types of programs kind of bridges that gap, and it shows us the human side of the TTPS, you know.
Yes.
I want to touch now, I want to switch gears a little bit. We know that police officers are being stationed at schools throughout Trinidad, and selected schools throughout Trinidad and Tobago. They started in Trinidad at the beginning of the school term, and we are advised that police officers will be stationed at 2 of our secondary schools here on the island of Tobago. I believe it is from today. So tell us, I mean, people have mixed feelings, mixed opinions, mixed, you know, tell us the TTPS, from the TTPS standpoint, what is your mandate and your approach in terms of executing your mandates?
All right. So these officers that are going into the school, they are termed as school-oriented police officers, right? And the officers will receive a level of training for them to understand what it requires to be in the schools. Now, we are not going there as this, like a heavy hand, just to go in there to say, well, look, police in the schools, in our spaces. We have 2 schools in Tobago that was selected to do this this pilot project, and the officers are going out there this morning. I myself will be there with them, right, in the school. So we are there to lend that support, right, and we are going to be working in collaboration with the safety officers who are already there in the schools, and also the MTS. Now, the principal is still in charge of her school, and the mechanisms that are in place for schools in terms of if somebody has to be suspended and that kind of thing, that remains, right? The police officer, their role and function is defined, and the officers are told what they will be there for. If there are infractions of the law, because we have seen it where children, just recently I saw where a child has been arrested for drug trafficking, right? So these are some of the things where the police officer would come in to inject the law into what is required, where a child, right, has created an infraction of the law. We will be there for those purposes. But it's not like we're there as a heavy hand to go and grab students and, you know, to do anything that is outside of what the law requires or that we are required to do. We are still there like as well as a mentor, right? Where we see children probably going down a particular line, and we could be proactive enough to advise them, listen, you probably really need to rethink what you're going to do. So as I said, they're the counselors at the schools. They have their psychological workers as well that are there. All these mechanisms remain in place, and wherever it is necessary to implement these layers, they would be done. If it requires the law to the officers to take them into the law, then that's what we are there for.
All right. Thank you so much for bringing that clarity there for us where that is concerned, and we do hope that it goes well. And my advice to our schools is to comply. Let us work together. Let us continue to build communities where we can partner with TTPS. Remember, at the end of the day, we want to live in a space that we are comfortable, where there is peace and we don't have anything to worry about looking over your shoulder every 30 seconds. Thank you so much, Acting ASP Mahalia Bacchus, for coming in this morning and bringing us that type of information. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to go for a short break before we continue conversations here in studio this morning, and we want you to remain with us. Remember, you can leave your comments on our Facebook live stream and our YouTube channel at Tobago Updates. We do want to hear from you. But in the meantime, we have to go for a short break. And as we go, we invite you to help us.
Share the live, share the live, share the live.
We'll be right back.